Nutrition is actually a science, it's not an opinion, and our bodies aren't the same. We don't have the same lifestyles, we don't have the same gut microbiome or genetics. And I think it's really great that we're finally introducing gut health into the conversation, because if we think of the cells in the gut, they outnumber the cells in the body 10-1. Carbs are not bad for you. It's more the portions that we can control and the quality. Sugar doesn't have to be cut out completely. It's about managing your portions of it.
There's a lot of people that want to lose weight. And there's a lot of people promoting that they have the secret to losing weight.
Oh yeah.
What actually works? Azi, we hear a lot about exercise and the effect that it has, the positive effects that it has on our mind and our body. What influence do the foods that we eat have on the way that we feel and the way that we function?
So I think everybody eats, first of all, right? So food has so many different functions. And if we're looking at just the constructs of our diet, those macronutrients, which are your carbs, your protein, your fat, they're all foods that basically we need in large amounts because they give us energy if it's carbs. Protein is also good to make sure that it supports our immunity. It's also good for building and maintaining muscle. And also when you're thinking of your healthy fats as well, not only immunity, also brain health. There's so many different benefits of the nutrients that we get from the different foods. And outside of that, the variety of the different foods that we eat. So looking at the benefits of nutrition, they can differ from person to person depending on what your lifestyle looks like. Nutrition can be beneficial for athletes to help them to perform well, the everyday person to just support their functioning and just to support just an overall healthy life. And then it can also be preventative in terms of preventing and managing certain chronic diseases of lifestyle. So it really could be anything from type 2 diabetes to certain heart diseases, high cholesterol, high hypertension or high blood pressure. So nutrition really is probably one of the most key components when it comes to managing those chronic diseases. And I think a lot of the time when we think of, oh, why is food important? We're thinking just at a baseline level, but there's so much more to it because it can really, really just help you to live better.
So there's a lot of talk nowadays about gut health. And I don't think it was something that people spoke about years ago.
Oh, yeah, no.
Why is gut health important and what can we do to protect our gut a little more?
So if you think of your guts, just think of it as your body's kind of main source of immunity. At least 70% of your immune system actually is managed in the gut. And your gut health is something that starts all the way from when you are in your mother's tummy. Because whatever she has been eating, whatever she's been whatever stresses she's been taking on, whatever her gut microbiome has been looking like will be yours. So basically the gut microbiome is the system of all the bacteria, good and bad, that all live together, right? Think of it like a city. It's like you've got good people, you've got bad people, you have, people in between. And you always, if you think of the gut like that, you want to make sure that you're making sure that the good bacteria is thriving. So with gut health now, it's become really important because we're finding that there's a link between gut health and obesity. There's a link between gut health and kind of increasing your risk of certain chronic diseases, and also between that and just making sure that, whatever just general lifestyle issues that we can manage as well. So gut health is so, so, so important because also the main part of the immunity is how it kind of entered into the conversation during COVID. I know COVID's very triggering. But that was the main time where we started to see that, gut health is so important for managing your immunity and also from a mental health perspective, because that was also highlighted then. So there's so many ways that we can support it. And I think it's really great that we're finally introducing gut health into the conversation, because if we think of the cells in the gut, they outnumber the cells in the body 10-1. So really there's so much that we should be doing to support that through our diet. And I'm glad it's finally being highlighted. As you can tell, it's like one of my areas of interest. I'm always very, very much passionate about just speaking out on gut health myself.
So you mentioned that the health of your gut has an impact on your mental state.
Mm.
How does it influence your dopamine and your happiness and things like that?
Yeah. So if you're thinking of certain food groups like our carbs, that actually helps with specifically the serotonin release. At least 90% of the serotonin is absorbed when we're eating carb-rich foods. And that's the reason why, after a long day where it's just been a terrible day, like terrible Monday, whatever it is, you feel so much better after eating a carb-rich meal. So that's the first thing. Another thing is if we're looking at our gut, specifically inflammation in the gut is what can predispose us to a lot more of these, a lot more mood disorders in particular, actually. So if you're able to kind of eat a diet that helps to manage the inflammation in the gut, that can actually then support reducing and managing specific symptoms, actually, of different mood disorders. So that's something that we're finding, and that's really interesting that not only what you're eating, but the types, just the lifestyle that you lead as well. That really, really makes a difference in terms of specifically reducing the mood disorders or reducing the ruminating thoughts, and particular nutrients can be really key in that as well.
So it helps you with your mental clarity, the foods that you eat.
Can help with mental clarity, concentration. It can help with improving just overall mood. If you're thinking of certain nutrients that can help with just managing mood, magnesium is one of those. It also helps with reducing anxiety-like symptoms. So magnesium is something that we can get from so many different foods, our grains, our beans and legumes, our nuts and seeds, and also from our greens as well. So that's just one example of a mineral that's really important for just overall managing those mood symptoms. And then omega-3, which is super important for the brain and cognition, and then just reducing inflammation again. And the more we can focus on reducing that inflammation, the more we can actually help the gut to thrive, and we can help to stop having the cell damage that leads to also those negative effects in terms of the mood disorders as well. So yeah, it's really something that's underrated, nutrition, and the different nutrients and minerals and vitamins play a crucial role in making sure that you can support your just not just mental clarity, but also kind of preventing some of the symptoms of certain mood disorders as well.
So sleep is something that's also being talked about more these days.
Oh yeah.
What impact does the quality of our sleep have on our food choices?
Massive, massive. Think about after having a very, very late night, the next day, like, you don't know what you want to eat. You couldn't be bothered to figure that out because you already have so many decisions that you have to make in the day, right? Just think about it. The food is the last thing on your mind. So that's where we've just seen from the research that your meal choices after having been sleep deprived actually switch to more convenient foods that are more energy dense, so they're more high calorie foods. They're also convenient foods because think of it, with that fatigue, you're not really wanting to be sitting and preparing meals. And then also in the brain, there's two hormones that regulate your hunger and fullness, and specifically leptin, which is the fullness hormone, doesn't release properly to tell you that actually, okay, I'm feeling full. So you overeat on top of those eating decisions that are more convenient and high calorie. You're also going to be more likely to overeat and not be able to control your portions as you could before. So it's really important to make sure that you're prioritizing sleep, because it can have those impacts as well.
So there's a lot of people that want to lose weight,
Mm.
and there's a lot of people promoting that they have the secret to losing weight.
Oh yeah.
What actually works?
I think we really overcomplicate it. I think that if we look at any diet, there's no diet that's superior. Anyone who's touting a diet and saying, this thing is the best thing ever, there's no such thing. As long as you are consuming less food than your body is burning in a day, which is what we would refer to as that calorie deficit, you will have similar results across the board. Some people, will try diets and they just won't work for them because the people who are promoting those diets have a personal either connection or agenda to promote that particular diet for whatever reason it may be. So then they're expecting everyone to kind of have the same experience, and our bodies aren't the same. We don't have the same lifestyles. We don't have the same gut microbiome or genetics. So it's really something that I always say, from a perspective of someone who's sharing like a diet or anything like that. There's no diet that's superior. If something works for you, great. But I always say, let's stop overcomplicating it. It's really just portion control. And then any other diet that is restrictive, where you're either cutting out on your meal timing or you're cutting out on a specific food group, of course, you're going to lose weight, especially with those, what I referred to as macronutrients before, right? If you're reducing carbs from your diet or removing it completely, it's such a big component of your diet that, of course, you're going to lose weight. You're going to immediately be in that calorie deficit. So I think it's about finding what works for you and speaking to professionals, because nutrition is actually a science. It's not an opinion. So if you're going to someone who's giving their opinion on a diet, you need to remember it's their opinion and that it's not always going to be backed in science. And even if it is, it may not be backed in high quality science either, because there's so much research, but it has to be the highest level of quality for us to be able to back any claims. So for me, when it comes to diet, you choose what works for you. There's always pros and cons, and I always allow people to have their pros and cons. But if someone is adamant on like this specific diet and they're not willing to waver, we can find ways to add the nutrients and make it work. But yeah, there's no superior diet at all.
This podcast has been a dream come true, and I need your help in order to grow the show. If you could do the smallest favor for me, it will be easier than making a cup of coffee. Please go and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to health and diet in particular. There's a lot of myths out there, and I think I'd like to bust some of those myths today.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So starting with breakfast, people always say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Is that true? And how many meals should we be having every day?
So I think every meal is important. Every meal is an opportunity to nourish your body. So I wouldn't say just breakfast. I'd say every meal. In terms of, whether you need to eat that in terms of your meal frequency, I would say what suits you. Some people can do 3 meals a day. Some people do 5 to 6 small meals. Some people, really struggle to get even to the 3 meals in a day. So we have to break it up into smaller components. So, it's about what works for you. The main thing from my perspective, as like a nutrition scientist, is to make sure that your blood sugar levels are being maintained throughout the day, to make sure that you're getting adequate amounts of energy from your meals, to make sure that you are feeling energized to be able to concentrate, and to make sure that we're, getting in enough of your nutritional needs for whatever your goals may be, and just making sure that we're managing you holistically in what works for you. So yeah, meal wise, it's up to you. What suits you, and then my goal is to make sure that we can meet your goals within that.
So I often, when I have breakfast, I end up getting that midday slump at around 1 p.m. How can I avoid that? Or is that just something that you deal with?
So that can come from, depending on what you're eating. If you're eating maybe a meal that's a lot more bigger portions of carbs, that can be what causes that slump, like that mid-afternoon slump. But it can also be if you're having too big of gaps between your meals. So for me, I'm more concerned about how we can have a meal consistency within your eating window to make sure that you're getting enough energy. So it could be that if you're having breakfast at like 7 or 8 a.m. and you're only eating at 1, that's 5 hours. That's too long. You should be giving yourself at least 3 to 4 hours between when you have a main meal before you eat something else, and at least 1 to 2 hours after having a snack before you have another main meal. So that meal timing is what helps to prevent the slump, and then the quality of the components of the meal. So maybe then I would say, okay, let's analyze what's on the plate and try and reshift it to give you more sustained energy. So more of the protein, more of the high fiber starches. So that could be just anything, any of your darker starches, and then more vegetables, because those will also give you a more sustained energy.
So another myth that hopefully ties in with this is that carbs are bad.
Ooh, Carbs are not bad. Okay. Um, I'm always gonna advocate for every food group has a function. Carbs are your main source of energy and fiber. You remove that. Fiber is so important for your digestion. Most people who cut out carbs will have constipation as a result, most likely. And also cutting out such an important food group can also lead to certain vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So carbs can fit. It's about the quality of the carbs. So maybe it's about choosing a carb that's more high fiber and then the quantity in terms of the portion on the plate. So yeah, that would be the restructure. But carbs are not bad for you. It's more the portions that we can control and the quality.
What about sugar?
So sugar, it's also a source of energy. It's another carbohydrate. It is one of those more. If we're looking at the glycemic index, that GI, it's how we rank how different foods affect our blood sugar levels. It's more on the intermediate side, so it will spike your blood sugar levels. So I always say, there is a recommendation of sugar intake no more than 6 teaspoons for adult females, according to the World Health Organization, or no more than 9 teaspoons for adult males. And that includes not only tea and coffee, but also in products. So with sugar, it's about making sure that you're minimizing it because high sugar is generally more energy dense or higher calories. So you want to make sure that you're not having, I usually refer to it more as like the empty calories because it's not giving you any nutrient or nutritional value with it. It's giving you energy and it's making you feel better after a long day. So it's definitely something to just say that there's a space. I think balance is important. Sugar doesn't have to be cut out completely. It's about managing your portions of it. And if you are living with diabetes, chatting to your dietitian in terms of how to navigate, how to get those alternatives in.
And what about zero sugar, sugar free?
Mm.
Are those actually healthy for you?
It depends. There's a lot of different types of your sweeteners or your non-nutritive sweeteners. So they can be really useful from someone's perspective of weight management because they're very low calorie. Um, so that's the first thing. Someone who's living with diabetes, it may help to just have an alternative in terms of if they are socializing and want a sugar-free, they want to have a cool drink or a beverage, that there's those sugar-free alternatives. But from a health perspective, I think it's more just about the goals that you have. If you're living with diabetes, if you're managing your weight, they can be useful. There's just a cutoff in terms of how much you should be having of them because if they end in OL, they'll give you some gut symptoms in terms of cramping or bloating or discomfort. So the xylitol, the mannitol, the sorbitol can all give those types of symptoms. So it forces you to actually have less of it. So yeah, I would say with those, there is a space for it. It's not necessarily that they're healthier because very small research, more animal studies have shown that they can be something that can actually cause, they kind of feed the bad bacteria more than the good bacteria. So from a digestion perspective or gut health perspective, I would just say it's about managing your portion. Swapping to sugar-free everything and still having lots of that cool drink or because it's sugar-free, that's not the way that I would say we should do it. It's still something to be having mindfully in moderation as part of a balanced diet. It's a lower calorie option.
And low fat? Is low fat good for you?
I'm very neutral when it comes to that. I know in the past dietitians were like low fat, fat free, low fat, fat free. For me, it's more the saturated fats. So that's the hard fats at room temperature the animal fats that we find in our dairy products. It's more about if you're living with high cholesterol, trying to cut down maybe on a double cream yogurt to a lower fat alternative that's still gonna give you the feeling of the creaminess that you want, like maybe more a Greek style, but then have lower saturated fat. So the saturated fat was mainly the thing when it comes to that's more like specific now to a disease condition. But for the general public, choose the one that you enjoy. Um, and you're still going to get the benefits from the dairy in terms of the calcium. If it's yogurt, you'll still get the live cultures. You can still incorporate the fats in there as part of a balanced diet. You don't have to be low fat, fat free everything. I think that there is a place for full cream alternatives as well.
Then people talk about processed foods
Mm.
and ultra processed foods being really bad for you. how often do we end up having ultra processed foods without even realizing it? And are they as bad as they make it out to be?
Everything about it, we're not really making anything ourselves, or so everything is processed to a certain degree. But ultra processed foods generally will tend to have a lot more, will be so removed from their original form that they're very much lower in terms of the fiber and the nutrients that are important there. So ultra processed foods tend to be for enjoyment. If you think of the foods that are ultra processed, it will tend to be more your meats, like your sausages. It could be cakes, cookies, biscuits. So I always say in that 20% of the 80-20, they can have a place. But generally, if we're looking at the research, those ultra processed foods, specifically highly processed meats, does increase your risk of heart disease, high cholesterol, and also certain types of cancers. So it's something that we should be minimizing in the diet, but doesn't mean that it's completely off limits. But yeah, majority of the time we should be minimizing those. The foods that you think of that are ultra processed, um, at no point did I mention any foods that have high nutritional value. It's more food for the soul, which there's still a space for as well.
So that's often like your takeaways and your convenient food, I would assume.
Yeah, so it would be takeaways, it could be your convenience meals, it could be your sausages, it could be bacon, it could be more of your baked goods as well, sweets, chips. So those types of foods are better to reduce in your diet. And then think about it with your takeaways, for example. It's there for enjoyment, and they're trying to get the perfect bliss point of salty and sweet to keep you coming back for more. So that they are not focused on your health. They're focused on making sure you come back.
Mm.
So keeping that in mind, that, there's the room for the enjoyment, but it shouldn't be something that's on a regular basis.
Let's take a short break and head to the coffee corner. Azzy, what's your go-to coffee order?
My go-to has to be a red cappuccino because I cannot handle caffeine to save my life. So a red cappuccino, oat milk from Woolies, that's the go-to. The Woolies Cafe for me is actually the best place that I've had it.
And who would you like to share the coffee with?
I would say any family or friends. Like I think, yeah, any of my loved ones, my brothers, I could definitely share it with my brothers.
So now a lot of people would have entered the new year. They would have had all these health goals and said, okay, this year health is my main priority.
Mm.
But then they'll also say eating healthy is expensive.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. It's expensive with I think what's more expensive is actually not eating healthy now when you see your medical bills in 10 to 15 years time. Your health is and should be a priority. I know in general food is so expensive right now. So just to live, it's a lot more difficult. But also if you plan, that proper planning does prevent you from spending more, in terms of, if we're comparing healthy eating. So I always say how you're going to do it is by planning, supporting local, because your local vendors are going to be way more affordable. It's going to be fresh. It's going to be seasonal foods that are more nutrient dense. So supporting your local businesses, your local fruit and veg, your local butchers, you'll find that it'll be a lot more affordable. Looking out for those specials as well. And then, yeah, that's planning your meals really, really is what helps. I can give you an example where, if you've got a budget of 300 Rand per week, or let's say 1,200 Rand to spend on groceries, if you plan properly and you buy foods that take up enough space, like your grains that double or triple in size, you're getting double or triple of more than what you actually paid for. So that's where, if you plan your meals, you can still get away with having more nourishing meals. And then you can kind of narrow down your shopping lists to the things that you actually need, and avoid the food waste. Because I think that the main thing with the healthy eating is that a lot of people end up wasting a lot of food because they're like, I need to eat healthy. Then they buy so much groceries that they don't even fly through, right? So yeah.
So planning seems to be the biggest component, and obviously it does take effort. And in a world where you've got Uber Eats at your fingertips and someone can come on a scooter and deliver your pizza straight to your door, that sounds a lot easier than, slaving away in the kitchen and preparing meals for the week.
It does. It's so much more convenient, but I think we all have 24 hours in a day and we need to choose how we spend our time. And if you want to invest into your health, that means it's going to steal some time from the day. It's going to steal some energy, but you get that back by being able to have a healthy life and age well and not aging with any chronic conditions. So it's a kind of like, are you going to choose convenience now for a future of an inconvenient life of having to be on some kind of medication, of having to, you know, um, be bedridden, whatever the case is. So you just choose your hard. I think life is hard, work is hard, adulting is hard, but you choose your hard. And um, it's really, I think it really is a choice. You can make those choices now so that future you can thank you for it. And your future, if you're someone who, wants to have children in the future, that they can thank you for it, that you are healthy to be able to see them have children one day, for example. So just asking yourself that question of like, what if I want to help future me, what can I do with current me? And I have clients who have only 20 minutes in the kitchen, and we found ways to use convenient foods that are already chopped, things that are tinned, maybe a protein that's ready prepared, and you can work through it, but maybe it's worth going to the guidance of someone like a dietitian who can kind of find ways for you to do so.
What's the smallest choice you can make to live a healthier life?
Just asking yourself what you can add. I think there's so much more that we can add into our diets. I think we're very restrictive when we think healthy. Oh, I need to cut this, I need to cut that. Just ask yourself what you can add. If you're going to a bride and you're feeling overwhelmed that, oh, like, what am I going to eat when I get there? Just ask yourself what you can add. Bring that salad, and it's already a more nutritious meal.
Perfect. Well, thanks for today's episode. I'm so glad that we managed to fit this within the time limit, because
Yeah.
you also have your own podcast, and I think we did really well
Yeah.
to not yap too much today.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a very important conversation, and a lot of people now are looking at health very differently. And sometimes we wait for something bad to happen to our health before we actually make a change. And like you say, that preventative planning before stops you from having all those problems later.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.